A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to uLaw's Friday webinar. It's a CPD session today. The topic for today's session is Trust and General Reconciliation Demystified. I request all of you to make a note of the topic, and the attendance link will be shared in a bit on the chat window for all of you to make a note. Please use the chat window at any time to ask any questions, and I would probably take the questions towards the end of the session today as it's a CPD session. Also note that it is for 1 hour of substantiative CPD hours. uLaw does not provide, it's for professionals in CPD. We do not provide substantiative. Sorry for the confusion. I'm just going to put in the details here. It's 1 hour CPD for professionals and credits. Any questions at any time, I encourage you to use the chat window. And please make a note of the topic as well. Trust and General Reconciliation Demystified. We're going to see quite a bit of agenda today. Not too heavy, but at the same time, pretty important to keep yourself compliant with Law Society. What are things that you would need to cover? What are the things you need to keep in mind when it comes to the reconciliation process? The life cycle of having to reconcile your books, both trust and general. Is it necessary to keep your general reconciled? Is it not enough to do just trust? We're going to see quite a few things over here today. Also, most importantly, how to get audit ready. And I'm also going to do a little demo here for all of you using uLaw. I represent uLaw, and I'll be walking you through how it works in uLaw. If any of you find it difficult to hear me, I request you to click on the speaker option on the top and switch to the phone mode instead of the computer mode. That would give you much more better clarity of audio here. I see more folks joining in. Let's give it a minute or two for more people to join in, and I'll get started. Thank you. Thank you. Starting off with what is the accounting model or system that one can be using when it comes to keeping your books reconciled on a monthly basis, keeping your books up to date, basically bookkeeping and overall reconciliation processes and compliances. Now, it takes a little bit of time to decide, but the very few things that you might have to consider is the size of the firm and the cost, whether you're willing to spend a few tens or hundreds on, an accounting system. Like, for example, a legal practice management allows you to not only record your accounts, but also helps you with the practice management. So that's why many of them prefer a legal practice management over, maybe a spreadsheet accounting or a general accounting software. Gone are those days where you would manually do double entry on a books or a spreadsheet, but now it's between the last two options that you see, the general accounting or the legal accounting software. And like I said, the legal accounting allows you to do the practice management stuff as well, and docketing, billing, invoicing, collecting payments, and recording all of those compliance at every stage, not just at the accounting level. So all of these are done using a legal accounting like uLaw that enables you to be compliant from day one. And as you progress with your data entry, maybe with a simple client intake or raising an invoice or collecting a payment or transferring money from trust to the general, all of these part of the life cycle of a client servicing. And as you progress into the end of the life cycle of, a month, let's say you are into a point where all your transactions are updated in the program, you have recorded one by one all of your trust imports, all of your trust exports, all of your incoming wire, outgoing wire, all the general deposits and withdrawals, everything entered in. And the proper accounting procedure is obviously to download your bank statements and do it simultaneously, because what happens in your bank is ultimately what you want to record in your bank, in your books as well, so that your bank reconciliation can happen. Sorry, I'm just taking a pause to answer a question. Yes, there is audio. Sorry about that. I hope everyone's able to hear me. Thank you. Thank you. We are number 17. I hope you can now hear me if you're connected to the audio. Thank you. Right. So into the reconciliation procedure. Now, it's very important that reconciliation is done for both trust and general. Many of them think that only trust is law society compliant and general is not. But ideally, the one who does not have trust, and let's say they only have general and you're being audited, the auditor would definitely like to see what are the kind of activities, the client payments, what are the kind of withdrawals, the expenses, everything that happens in your general account, right? So there's no such thing that says that general account is not required to be reconciled, but yes, general account also forms part of, or rather forms part of the law society compliances. It is one of the documents that is required if you see under uLaw's compliance tab. And whether it's trust or general, one of the basic requirement is to ensure all the transactions that took place in your bank is entered into your books. That way you could match your bank statement with your books to do the reconciliation. And if there is anything outstanding that is not cleared in your bank, is known as outstanding checks, that will not be that would not be cleared this month in the books as well, will be left as outstanding, equally for the deposits as well. And end of the day, any client having balance in the trust is also shown under the statement. So when you come from the top, as you see here on the right-hand side with the step number 1, 2, 3, and 4, step number 1, when you're reconciling your trust account, please ensure your balance as per the bank statement is entered in. Reduce all your outstanding checks. That is, you would have issued checks to vendors, to your clients, from trust, mostly to the clients, and maybe any disbursement that you have done directly from the trust. Reduce them, add all outstanding deposits, any deposits that was provided to you, check provided to you that was not deposited into the bank, plus or minus any bank error. Depending upon that particular month, if your bank has made any error by taking out any transaction, or rather transaction fee or something that comes in there. And you also can see the balance as on a specific date being reconciled. That is step number 1. And step number 2 will be all the outstanding checks that you see, which is entered in there too. Step 3 that you're seeing here is the client trust listing. So if you're doing your reconciliation in uLaw, forget about the step 2, 3, 4. They are automated. Once you enter the balance and you, clear the transactions, everything else falls in place, and you'll be able to record the transactions with the client's trust listing and the outstanding checks and deposits at the same time. Now, there's also something called trust comparison in general with the trust reconciled balance and any unexpended balance, which shows the client's trust ledger for any of that particular month or that particular period. Now, if you are doing it on your own or using a spreadsheet, I'm sure you're having to follow these steps manually and enter the outstanding checks, the client's trust listing, and the trust comparison, everything. However, if you're using a software, it's going to generate these documents or these numbers to you automatically. Likewise, when you are into the general account and let's say you're doing your reconciliation, again, you need balance as per the bank statement. Now, just a small tip when it comes to balance as per the bank statement. Many of you have different banks or rather have accounts with different banks. Some shows the balance carried forward at the front, some shows the closing balance, some shows the balance on the top of your page. So the total, one thing that and some just does a middle of the month to middle of the month. And, another good example is some stops at the last transaction. Let's say the month ends obviously by 31st March. And, let's say you have not done any transaction after 28th of March. It just so happens to be that the bank statement will end as on 28th of March. They won't go until 31st March. So a lot of them, are left puzzled to, find out, oh, why was my balance on 31st of March if the bank statement ended on 28th of March? That's because you didn't have any transaction the last 3 days of the month. So you would consider the balance as on 28th of March to be the balance as per the bank statement to be entered while you're reconciling. So that's a small tip that I wanted to share with all of you, and keep that in mind. If you're very clear with the data that you are inputting on a real-time basis, ideally it has to be real-time, but if you're, let's say, someone who does it over the weekend, then yes, then you'll have to make sure that you're entering the transactions with respect to either of the statements that you have with you, like a supporting document that you have with you, so you don't make any error while you're inputting the data. That is the key point for you to reconcile the books. Outstanding checks, outstanding deposits, please make a note. Obviously, you would have entered a check number with an amount into a disbursement column or into your office expense or into withdrawal, whatever. But you wouldn't see that amount showing up on your bank statement, obviously, because that check is not deposited. Because most of the times, if you see a withdrawal on your bank statement against a check, it will show up a check number there. And if you do not see the check number with that same amount, then it means the check is not cleared. So due diligently, try to not mark that check under your reconciliation process. Just leave it uncleared. That way it goes under the outstanding checks column. And once that is done, a major chunk is taken out of your pocket. And then comes the any deposit, very similar to outstanding checks. So outstanding checks and outstanding deposits, please treat it similarly. Make sure that all the checks are, entered in at the right time. That's why I'm saying data entry is the key to success for a proper reconciliation. Not just a proper reconciliation. If you see the tagline here, what it says is, should it take 10 minutes or 3 hours? Now, it totally depends on your data entry. Like when it comes to bookkeeping, if you have entered data in such a manner that everything is so appropriate, just in match with your bank statements, your, the withdrawals and deposits to the date and to the amount, to the client matter, disbursement or client payment or trust transfers, everything, right? There are a few things only that can happen when it comes to a bookkeeping. There can only be a few types of transactions that works out for bookkeeping purposes. So try to enter them due diligently without any issues, without any rectifications to be made. That will automatically end up with a reconciliation process less than half hour. But when you are looking at something, let's say your date is mismatched, something that happened the previous month was entered in the next month or vice versa, and there are quite a few examples that would, consume time to just rectify them. Now, if you, apply your mind and make the data entry process smooth by spending a little bit more than the required time, that would enable you to do your reconciliation within no time. However, just imagine if you're someone who just goes around entering transactions without checking the dates, without checking the proper amounts, without having to, look into other details in specific, let's say, client and matter details, then the entire reconciliation process is going to be a mess. It's not just for the trust, for the general as well. So key point is the data entry and matching it with your bank statement, reconciling it with your bank statement is then a very simple process, provided all your data is perfectly entered. Now, when it comes to general, it's very similar to, again, trust. It's just that you need to make sure you have the records of your general statement, again, the balances, the outstanding deposits, withdrawals, and then any of those, in this case, there's no bank error, unlike trust. So here, if there's any withdrawals in comparison with the bank ledger, make sure that you have them handy to do your reconciliations. Record all of your outstanding, clear them at the same time. When it's done, let's say you are leaving an outstanding check in the subsequent month, it gets cleared. You shouldn't be left puzzled as to where did this transaction come up in your bank statement. You will obviously understand that it is coming from a check that was issued the previous month, which only got cleared the current month, and you need to do the reconciliation appropriately. So when it comes to reconciliation again, you just need 3 pieces of information if you're using uLaw, okay? Number 1 is the date. You should be very clear as to what date you're reconciling. Like I said, some does it for the middle of the month based on their bank statement ending day. Some does it for end of the month, and it is totally up to you. But as per Law Society, you are required to do a reconciliation for previous month before end of the current month, 25th of the current month. So let's say we are in April. It's 19th of April today. Before 25th of April, I need to reconcile 31st of March 2024. So keep that in mind and ensure that every month you reconcile your books before end of the month for the previous month end. So the date of reconciliation is important. Which bank you're reconciling is important. Whether you're doing trust or general again has a couple of banks. Some has credit cards, some has just general, some has 2 general accounts. So make sure you're reconciling the appropriate bank accounts. Step 2, balance as per the bank statement or as on the specific date that you are entering here. Clearing all deposits and withdrawals one by one is the step number 3 that you see here at the bottom as well. You get to see all the transactions, but you have to go through them one by one to understand which one is cleared in the bank this month. When the above 3 steps are done, then you would be obviously able to see the reconcile button popping up, and then you can complete the reconciliation. So like I said, reconciliation is a very simple process. It's only a 3-step process if you are entering the data in a very due diligent manner, in a very, very proper manner. When I say proper, you need to make sure that the date, the particulars, the amount, everything is in alignment with your bank statements. When you're doing trust, one more step to be careful with is to ensure that you're entering it under the right client and the matter. Now, when it comes to reconciliation, there are generally 2 things that you want to keep in mind. That all the transactions that you enter in your accounting system that generally does not match with your record. Everything that you enter in, you need to definitely make sure that has all the information from your bank. If these issues are found, then the reconciliation becomes easier. So first thing is, all the transactions that you have in your accounting system does not match with your bank statement because maybe you would have made an error with the date, or otherwise an amount, whatever. Make sure that you can assign it and find it out. And all the bank transactions that you had forgotten to enter in your accounting system is there in your bank statement, but you have missed it to enter in the accounting system. So there are 2 ways that you could have an issue. One issue is that you have entered it in your accounting system, but it's completely wrong. Rather, it's not appropriate with what you see in the bank statement. Another thing is the bank statement has the transaction and you've forgotten to enter it in the accounting system. You will probably notice it only when you're doing the reconciliation, and then you will have to come out of the reconciliation, go back into the matter, and then enter the transaction, right? So it's a little time-consuming process. So make sure that all your transactions are up to date. Before you start the reconciliation, you just go over the transactions from your accounting tab ensuring all the transactions. Maybe another thing that you could do is you can go over the lines and just match it with the number of lines in there. Now, if you're reconciling month by month, obviously you're up to date and you're audit ready. This is what I call as an audit ready. You should always be audit ready. Should not be saying that I'm audit ready next month. I'm audit ready in the month of July. I'm audit ready in the month of March. No, you should always be audit ready. It doesn't take too much to be an audit ready accounts unless you are someone who does not update your books on a daily basis or on at least a weekly basis. Then you need to be ensuring. It's like an alarming factor where you need to consider to enter your data on a regular basis. But being audit ready, another important goal is that you are ready to file your taxes with CRA anytime. You're ready to file your HST anytime, because if you are audit ready, it means that you have entered all your accounts, all your all your transactions are matched with the bank statements, all the incoming wire, outgoing wire, all the deposits, withdrawals, everything are matched, everything is matched, and you're able to proudly say that you can file your HST return every quarter. You could rather just for Ontario, but end of the day, it is your accounting system that makes sure you are 100% ready, accurate transactions are entered, and then you're able to also report all of this with, keeping in mind that it involves compliances and gives you that peace of mind, gives you that, I won't say exactly the comfort, but more of a pride that, you're up to date. And, let's say being audited, it's like within few minutes, you're able to send email with all the details to the auditor saying that, hey, here are my reports that you had requested for. That is the kind of compliance level that you should be maintaining at your office, at your work, for your practice level. So make sure that you are always audit ready for that case. And when you're audit ready, if whether the reconciliation is going to be completed, yes, you need to be making sure that your reconciliation is up to date. If you have reconciled both your trust and general, that is one of the main requirements. And there are different types of audit. I'm sure when we talk about, there's a separate CPD on that part, but let's just briefly discuss about when there could be different types of audit. Some call it as practice review, some call it as spot audit, and depending upon the type of audit, you'll be requested to send documents. And it's not just the reconciliation, but also a little more than that, your ledgers, journals, and other documents that needs to be kept in mind. So please make sure that you're entering all of that, and or rather downloading them from time to time, and then you should be good. If you're using uLaw, again, you have a separate section under each tab, mainly accounts, matters, and the contacts tab too has compliance. But the one you're seeing here on the photo is the Law Society compliance documents for accounting purposes. You have the trust ledger, general ledger, 4 types of journal, that is trust receipt journal, trust disbursement journal, general receipt journal, and general disbursement journal. And you have other documents too, including intermatter trust transfer, Form 9As, and fee book, expense book, and there's also trust and general reconciliation tab. Now, if you are doing it on a monthly basis, I would highly recommend you to download this on a monthly basis and keep it along with your reconciliation, so that whenever you're being audited, you can always take it out and provide it to the auditor, and it's not just that you need to wait until you're going to be audited. Now, about the checklist, what needs to be done when it comes to your reconciliation or, being yourself audit ready? Number one is, let's take into consideration the retainer and the fee structure, because that's where your first point of contact, your first point of agreement with your client arises. Make sure you have a proper fee structure. You communicated that with the client at the time you're signing the retainer agreements. You have a section under retainer accounts to enter all the charges that has occurred during the disbursements and any recovery transactions or expenses that takes place. Having that in the mind, you have the right procedure to issue receipts, issue invoices whenever you collect the payments, and also transfer money from trustee general and pay yourself if you have spent for this particular transaction. All this in keeping in mind a proper invoice is also entered in the timely manner. You need to ensure that you also have all the data of your client, including the dockets and the disbursements, the taxes applicable while you're raising an invoice. Once an invoice is raised, you present it to the client, letting them know that this is their legal fee disbursements, and you provide them with all the documents, supporting documents for disbursements, and move the money from trustee general. Any balance, then that is called as invoice balance. You capture balance into trust and general accounts, pay them into pay them from trust to the general. That is what is called as getting paid from the trust. And you have also any disbursements that is paid out of trust. Anything that is overdrawn from trust, you ensure that you put it back into the trust. Many of them miss out on this point, and this is something that is caught during the audit, so please be careful about that point. Getting the money into general is when you raise an invoice, you could either transfer the money from trust to the general, or the client directly pays into the general. If you have made any disbursement from general, that would allow you to transfer funds from trust to the general and pay yourself, or get the money directly into the general too. Another thing here is handling the trust account and required procedure and documents. Now, when you're handling the trust, you need to be a little bit extra careful. It's nothing like a rocket science here. Again, many of them fear to use a trust account, but trust me that using a trust account is pretty simple if you are able to keep track of the accounts of each client having money in trust account. Now, maintaining client trust ledgers, super easy. If you can just enter the balances from time to time, any deposit withdrawal accordingly, maintaining all the receipts and disbursements, that's what is called as deposits and withdrawals. Maintaining all the monthly trust comparisons. Again, when you're doing your reconciliations, you will find monthly trust comparisons. If you're using uLaw, these are automated. And recording all your Form 9As. That is, if you're moving money from trustee general electronically, you're required to maintain a Form 9A. Alongside with general account, maintaining general ledger, maintaining your receipts and disbursements, expense journal, all your fee books and expense book with the discounts, anything that you have made. Please capture them somewhere in your matter. It could be where you have some notes. It could be like on a paper pen on your invoice, on top of the invoice, and it's very important that you make a note in the respective program that you're using. You need to make sure that if you're providing a discount, it's done from the matter, the way you're able to collect information under the specific matter. And in times of, let's say, reconciliations or at the time of audit, you're able to provide respective details to the auditor or to the accountant. Also keeping in mind any taxes portion. For example, if you're doing your HST every quarter, you need to make sure that you are maintaining records for taxes received and paid, which is the incoming wire and the outgoing wire. And if you are doing this due diligently, you should be able to, again, find reconciliation process simple. Also the compliances too. Now, how much time are you spending managing all this? It totally depends on your firm's size and the transactions. But on an average, if you are someone who does data entry on a regular basis, it could be daily, weekly, monthly, on a regular basis, you're able to maintain the records and you're able to present the information without any error from time to time, so that any mistakes, you're able to rectify it immediately. And when it comes to the point where you're reconciling, it is super seamless and you're able to manage the matter. At the same time, the accounting too, which saves you a lot of time. Preventing errors and reconciliation is super simple. And recording the data mostly when in there that takes place is definitely a key point to note. And that allows you to maintain the ledgers and the journals of not just accounting workflow, also the matter workflow, and all the records are in alignment. Now, if you're a sole practitioner, trust me, this process, doing this, and then your monthly reconciliation will not take you more than an hour overall. So this includes the data entry, the reconciliation, and compliance together for one bank account. Now, if you're someone who's a little mid-sized firm, make it like, let's say you have 2 to 3 bank accounts, make it just double. Then when you're a big size or a little more than a medium-sized firm, then you need about 3 hours to 4 hours per month. So it totally depends on how accurate you are with data entry and when and there it takes place, and also maintaining ledgers and journals from time to time, keeping in mind all the records are entered from time to time. You're able to be successful with the reconciliation and compliance process. Now, if you ask me the benefits of using a legal accounting software, again, very simple, because it helps you to do the data entry as and when it takes place. It helps you to be aligned with your financial institution. And most importantly, helps you to be compliant, and there's ease of use. Overall accountability with analytics is available as well. So if you're using a legal accounting software, try to use the features apart from also just the reconciliation and client intake processes. There are so many features that involve analytics, that involves calendars, that involve these indirectly helps you to be on top of your accounts, on top of your books, indirectly helps you to be making all of those records easier to be maintained. So let me take a few minutes to show you all how it works at our end in the uLaw platform. So if you take let's take a simple transaction here. Let's see how it looks when it comes to, the general and trust accounting and reconciliation. Now, if you are using uLaw, you would just see that take any contact and, you'd be able to add in the file a couple of transactions. Let's say today the client came in and replenished your trust account with a small retainer, and for it's an ongoing matter, just confirm that you have the reference numbers. You are helping yourself to, kind of make the reconciliation process easy by entering these transaction numbers, the right date. Even though you're entering it on a Friday morning, but they came and paid you this on a Monday morning, you want to make sure that you're entering the right appropriate date. The date again comes from the bank statement, verified. You don't have to, kind of hesitate to take that 1 minute to do an additional verification, but always try to make sure that you add in the transaction information, provide them with a receipt, and apply the funds to their trust account, just to save time canceling it. Once you provide the receipt, you are going to start the work. When you're starting the work, let's say, okay, there's a docket that I have already entered in here. Let's say I visited the client. So you want to enter the duration, took about 30 minutes. You want to bill the client for the same 30 minutes and click on save. So when you do that, you can see there's an invoice pending on the top, which means that you're going to enter the invoice. Before you do that, let me show you that there's a little disbursement also that was made at the same time to make, let's say from the general account, was something to do with the code filing fee. It was about $200, tax exempt. You paid this 200 plus tax, it was tax exempt. You paid it using your general account. It was an online transfer that was made or a wire transfer that was made. The reference number and save it. Once it gets saved, you know that you're going to send your client an invoice. You could just make an eco-friendly, short description, invoice for both dockets and disbursements. Once you have entered the dockets and the disbursements, you would then be able to transfer the money that is lying in your trust to the general. And if there's anything that your client needs to pay you, you can then do a direct general. Okay, so that is the invoice for this period. You want to then go back in there, click on question mark, transfer the money that is lying in your trust. You did it on 19th, today's date, after you raised an invoice. You can see the reference number in your, a little screen that you have transferred the money from trust to the general using the bank. Once you're done with that, you can download the Form 9A simultaneously. Then you can go on to uLaw matter and collect the remaining funds into the general account. That was $378. They have email transferred you. You see all of this in the bank against the amount that was removed or that came in. You can also give them another receipt. Okay. And then now you click on statements, provide a trust list general. Just want to verify what happened in the trust in general with today's date and the previous date, the 19th and the 14th. You want to make sure everything is intact. The money that's come and gone out, the ledgers, very important for both trust and general at the same time. While that is being done, you slowly go back into your accounts, Just make sure that a transaction for today's date, April 19th, is there. The court filing fee that was taken out of the general account, the $200 is lying here. And then the money that was, paid into the general directly, 378, and the money that was sent from your trust to the general, that is the trust transfer. Everything is here in for you to take a look. And then you can just go back into the trust to make sure that trust transactions are also entered. Okay, there you go. The 500 that came in, 500 that went out. Now, let's say I want to reconcile my trust just for today's date. And of course, let's say for these two transactions or for the entire April. You're going to see the few things first. Number one, the date on which you'd like to reconcile the account. In this case, let's say I want to do the 30th April. I know it's not done yet. Let's leave it as today's date, 19th April. You need the balance as per today's date. You go into the bank and check the balance. And then you will see all the transactions coming up once the loading is done. Since I'm using a practice account, I have way more than transactions from the past year. So I haven't cleared anything, so you see a lot. But go ahead with clearing the transactions. And then you would see the reconciliation button popping up, like how you see here in the blue on the left-hand side, right? Right beside cancel. So first thing, make a note of the date that you'd like to reconcile, the amount as on that date, and clear the transactions that you see on the bank statement. The ones that are not cleared, leave them uncleared. Those are outstanding deposits or withdrawals, respectively. And then as step 4, you would see the blue button popping up with reconciliation. So let's say I want to do it for 31st March. You just enter that and wait for it to finish loading accounts. Then you can enter the amount as per the bank statement. Then you can come down and clear all these transactions one by one. Right? And then you will see the reconciliation. It's very similar. And one other thing that you'd want to keep in mind is the bank error. Send out a standing instruction to your bank that as a legal professional using trust account, you're not allowed to carry any bank charges in your trust account, and make sure that your bank abides with and they take it out of your general account only on a monthly basis or transaction depending upon the type of account you use. Once you're done with that, just make sure there are no such transactions in your trust account, because that becomes a bank error. What happens if something like that happens? So, very simple, don't panic. Try to keep an eye on it on a regular basis. Like, don't check your trust account after a month saying that, let me take a look. I want to do the reconciliation for the month of March and somewhere in April mid. Try to do it on a, weekly basis. Try to take a look at the March account on a weekly basis. That way, if some, transaction like this happens, you can reverse it quickly, or you can ask the bank to put it back into your account, and you can that way fix the bank error if it happens within the same month. Now, let's say for the month of March, you find it only on 1st of April. Even that was not going to help, because the month is done, and even though you put back the money to reverse the transaction, it is still going to show up only in the next month. And hence, you will carry the bank error for one whole month. There's a separate bank error field that you're seeing here at the bottom. You're going to enter it over there. Now, for the month of March, all that I have to do is just go back into the March, and you're going to be able to enter the transactions and clear the month of March that you see here. All right? Once you do that, then the reconciliation button pops up. The ones that are outstanding, I would just not click on clear, and I will leave them outstanding as it is, if it's outstanding deposit or withdrawal respectively. That is for the trust. You can pass reconciliation if you intend to and do a preview reconciliation from time to time. If you don't want to do that, then you can just discard the changes and close it. So that way you could go and rectify any error if any transaction is there, and you can rectify it and ensure that it is done from time to time. Very similarly, for the general account, you can click on the reconciliation tab. General, in case of general, you have options to drop down and choose the bank account, whether it is for the general bank account or the general credit card. Depends on the bank, depends on the type of the bank that you bank with. And rather, you have both credit card and the general account, or you have only the general account, depending upon the number of bank accounts you have rather than the type. And let's say you're doing it for the general, make sure to again get the date right for the end of the month, the balance right for that particular date, and clear the transactions at the bottom, and you should be able to complete the reconciliation button will pop up like this in blue. Now again, when it comes to general, there are a lot of other transactions than just your client transactions. You could just enter that as well, and you'll be able to complete the reconciliation. Many of them do forget to enter what you have, and that would kind of not allow you to complete the reconciliation. So please make sure that you're able to enter all the transaction, and you should be able to complete reconciliation. Now the key thing here for you is the compliance tab right beside the reconciliation tab. So please make sure that you're adding all the transactions, completing the reconciliation, and then you'll also be able to do your compliances from time to time. So compliance again is available under accounts, under the compliance tab. So let's say today I did both, I worked on both trust and general. So all that you got to do is click on client's trust, click on today, and download. So you see the money that came into trust, 500, and money that went out of trust, which is another 500. You just take a look at it. Actually, you won't see the client's general with today. Then you'll see both the money that came directly into the general, and then that went out of general too. That is for the disbursement. Okay, over here, I could just go back in there. Let's say I forgot to download the Form 9A. So I click on today's date. Any trust transfer that was made, you'd be able to enter it in here. These are very important compliance documents besides your monthly reconciliation. Allows you to track down all the information for every client and the account that took place too. There's nothing about the client's trust receipt today. If I click on today's date, because I got the 500 into trust on 14th. So the 500, let's say I would like to do it as the week. So for the week of 14th, so I got it on 15th. So then I click on download, you will then see the information. Okay, that's the 500. Likewise, if I do it for today's date for gender, you'd see both the 378 that came in. It's all in there with the reference numbers. Now, these helps you to probably go back and take a look at the reconciliation tab. While you're doing your reconciliation, you can compare these numbers if you see anything in reference with your bank account. So let's say this electronic fund transfer reference number is there on your bank statement, so you can quickly verify that and complete the reconciliation, which is much more easier process. All right, I think we've covered most of it. I'm gonna probably take a few questions here for the reconciliation process. So the reconciliation process is actually very simple, but what goes behind it is the data entry process. That needs to be entered with more, being very careful with the data entry, and that needs to be more due diligent. You need to be able to add in all the information on a day-to-day basis, and you should be able to complete the transactions in no time, including the reconciliation and the compliances. Thank you all for attending today's session. I'm going to post the attendance links on the chat window here, and I'm also ready to take any questions in regards to today's webinar. The topic for next webinar was updated on our webinar website. I request everyone to take a look at it. And any questions, please use the chat window for the next 5 minutes. I'll be here. Thank you. Please hang in there to make a note of the attendance link, and also any questions, feel free to let us know. Any kind of, not just for the reconciliation, if you have any questions from the few topics that we've covered, please use the chat window to ask us anything. Thank you. The CPD attendance link entered here. Please make a note. I'm also entering a few other links that will be helpful for your using your uLaw. Just to save time, I'm going to be stopping the recording. I'm happy to take any questions here on the chat window. Thank you.